Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Project. I'm your host, Duc with Tri-City Equity Group. With me is my co-host, Steve Firos. Today, we have Mike Stohler on the show. Mike is the co-founder of Gateway Private Equity Group, which is a hotel real estate investment firm. When the multifamily market shifted in 2016, Mike pivoted into hotel investments for higher returns and better value-add opportunities. As Mike added to his hotel portfolio, found ways to scale his real estate business through hiring virtual team members in Mexico. Soon, other real estate investors started asking him to help them find similar qualified personnel, which led him to start Gateway VA, where he helps other business owners enhance productivity by hiring highly qualified virtual team members. Mike, welcome to the show.
How you doing, guys? Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Great. So how did you get started in your journey to earn passive income?
Yeah, I think as everyone did way back in the day, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think that's probably what everyone does. And went to a little seminar, and this was back in the probably mid 90s. And the pre-Google days. So that's how we started. And I was like, this has to be it. So I went back to my little small town, and something that everyone should look at if they're getting involved. I actually contacted our small university, our college, and as you know, people will houses. They will everything: money, houses, anything to their alma mater. And these colleges are not set up to be landlords. So I was able to go in and seller finance bought 8 homes from the university with little money down. And that's how I got started. It was just kind of what Robert Kiyosaki says, with part of his things is try to use other people's money as little as your own.
It's an awesome tip. So what is your why for building passive income?
Well, here's the thing. If you were to look at my desk at work, I have written on a printer paper my motto of why I'm involved in passive real estate. It says, build a life that you don't need a vacation from. And that is what passive income has allowed me to do, through the real estate that I've able to accumulate. I can work whenever I want. If I want to jump in the RV and work from the road, I can work anywhere in the world because I now have the team that I've created, and it's the 9-to-5 job just can't give you that.
That makes a lot of sense. So how does investing in hotels differ from multifamily?
Yeah, I think that's the number one question I get asked, and it's I think the question. It's an important question to ask. I have owned and managed over, I think, 1,400 multifamily units. And I got into the hotels in, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. The biggest difference is with multifamily, it is 100% real estate. Okay. With the hotels, I have a small business that sits on top of real estate. Okay, so I'm dealing with 2 different things. I have an appreciable asset in the land, but now I also have a flag. I have a Radisson hotel. I have a business that sits on there. The great thing that I found out that one of the biggest things that I can change is I get to set my, if you call it, rent every day. Okay, I'm not stuck in a 6-month lease, a 12-month lease at X amount of dollars per month. I can go in and say, hey, you know what? The Eagles are coming into concert, which they were. And guess what? I jacked up my hotel rates $100 more a night. During the slow time, I get to drop it a little bit. So I get to play with my rent. I'm using air quotes every day. I also, when people leave, I have professional housekeepers that this is what they do every day, and they can turn one of my units, I'm using multifamily lingo here. I can turn one of my units in 12 minutes, and it costs me $15 per hour. So my rate for that is a lot less. And the multifamily, someone leaves, well, I have to go in and usually hire someone to clean it at X amount of dollars. I most likely have to repaint it. I have to look at the carpeting or the flooring. So it costs a lot more to turn a unit. And I'm turning 15, 20, 30 units per night and then immediately re-renting it. So that is a big one. And also, the reason why I got into hotels is, if you want to talk about the cap rates and things like that, I don't really like cap rates. It's because they just show a little picture in time. Multifamily, because that is kind of the natural progression. You go from the single families to the fourplexes, and then everyone strives to be in multifamily. So everybody who can is in multifamily. That has dropped the cap rates down to, my God, here in Arizona, we're seeing 3.5%, 4% cap rates, and people are still buying them. I am getting 8 to 10 to 12 on hotels because it's just not a segment that individuals get into. So there's still some availability out there to purchase.
Got it. So how does someone get into hotel investing with no experience?
Well, it's the same thing that I could tell your listeners how you get into multifamily with no experience, or how do you get into real estate investing in general with no experience, is you find a mentor. You find someone that's experienced. I am a big advocate of trying to use as little of my own money. So what I did, and you can do this in multifamily, what I did is I found someone, when I sold and made $850,000, $860,000 on a multifamily unit in a 10-month period. And I didn't want to buy something at 3.5%, 4%. And that's why I was like, you know what, I need to get into something else. I had a friend that had 25 years experience in hotels. So I told him, I said, look, I want you to come and run the operations because I don't know anything about it. You don't have to put any of the money down, but I'm not going to give you a salary. What I'm going to do is more of a profit sharing. The guy didn't need the money, but I was able to sit there, and all of his money that he was going to get from my hotel was going to be operationally based and profit based. So that gave him an incentive, because what's very, very important is you don't give anybody anything for free and then expect them to be vested in your asset. It was my millions of dollars that was put into this hotel. So I needed to make sure that if I put someone in operations, that they're vested. They have a reason to get up and give me 110%. And that is a great way if you want to get involved in multifamily, or, I'm not talking about 4plexes, 8plexes. I'm talking about, the 50, the 100, something that's bigger. Get a mentor, get someone that you can learn from, and do something like I did, where you give them an incentive to actually teach you and grow that hotel. And through that experience, then I was able to sit there and say, hey, you know what, let's do it again. And that's how I got involved in hotels. It was kind of a shift. I still love multifamily, and I'll probably buy multifamily again, but not at 3.5%, 4%. As long as I can get 10% plus on hotels, I'm going to stick there.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what types of hotels perform consistently regardless of market conditions?
Great question. And that is an answer that I did not know the answer to until COVID hit, right? Because you say, well, COVID not only was a market condition extreme, but it affected everything. The last downturn in 2007, 2008 really affected one little type of an area. It was kind of a market crash. It was a real estate crash. It didn't really affect business travel. It didn't affect the entire world the way that COVID did. And what I found is the hotels, what did not stop during COVID or really during market downtime? It's transportation industry, the truck drivers. It's the hotels that are along major interstates that are outside of major metro centers. So one of the hotels that I bought is in a small town outside of Phoenix that I was thinking, it's like, this is kind of risky. It's in between Tucson and Phoenix. It's just right along the highway, but it has done the best because during COVID, people didn't want to get into the big city. They didn't want to stay where there's millions and millions and millions of people. So when they were traveling to see family, because here's the thing, people didn't fly, people drove. And they wanted to stay outside of a big city because they didn't want to be surrounded by all these millions of people. So they went to that small town, a very small population. The truck drivers all parked there because we had truck driver parking. So it's not these big resorts. And, I had these dreams of, man, I'm going to have these fancy hotels with these restaurants and these bars and conference rooms. they all closed down, during COVID. What stayed open? Extended stay, and then the smaller hotels where they get a free breakfast, free internet, and then they're on the road the next day. Those are the ones. Those are the ones that will do well and continue to do well.
Got it.
I stayed at some of those. I stayed at some of those too, so I can attest to that. Hey, free breakfast too, right there. Thumbs up.
So do you structure your deals as a single asset syndication or a fund, and why?
Yeah. Another great question. Well, why? Because I don't want to use my own money, right? So we do syndications. And the reason why I do syndications is I want to be able to advertise outside of my own friends and family. I want to be able to network. I want to be able to go on Facebook. I want to be able to go on my website, LinkedIn, and promote investing with me. Well, if you do that, then there's a three-letter word called the SEC that wants to know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and are you legit? Are you a fraud? So there's a lot of regulations and policies. So that's why you really need to do a syndication. That you do the syndication when you have an asset that you already have. You're thinking about it, because a lot of times in the syndication, what you want to do is say, I have X hotel and X amount in this city. This is it. So then I can do the deck and then you promote it. The next hotel project, what we're doing is we're opening up a fund. So we're doing both. The reason why you do a fund is there's a segment in the hotel industry that was CMBS loan. That's the loan that they got when they bought the hotel. The CMBS is a market-based, it's a stock market-based insurance loan. It's not through a bank at all. It's not through a community bank. It's not through a private investment or private investors or like a family office. These are stock market-based loans, and they don't have any type of way of deferring funds. You can't go in at the stock market and you have shares in the stock and say, hey, can you just stop everything for 4 months? That's not how the stock market works. So the people that had those type of loans still had to pay. There's no deferment. Also, you're not allowed to have any type of second on it. So they could not do the PPP. They could not do the EIDL. They could not get any help. So they're stuck. Those types of hotels are now coming due. They're now starting to go away, into foreclosure. So the reason why we're opening up a fund is we have to be very quick. I need to raise X amount of millions of dollars, but be able to tell people, I don't know what I'm going to buy yet. You just have to trust me. This is going to be good, because when I do, now I'm fighting against the bigger private equity groups. I just need to go and say, all right, this is the market. This is the type of hotel. This is it. And I have to immediately say, yes, I want to buy it. You can't do that really with the syndication. So you have to do it what's called an open fund.
It's interesting, and even just you talking right there, like it sounds like, okay, this is a number of lessons. Now, obviously, like through every downturn, you pick up some new tools, right? Like you kind of either have to adapt or you're gonna go the way of the dodo, right? So,
yep.
I was gonna say, like, that was gonna be a question. You touched on how COVID, let's say, impacted some of like the daily business, but that sounds like it's also impacted maybe your acquisition strategy and some of the tools that you're using.
You hit on a very important statement. And for all of you out there, when something bad happens, you can either curl in a ball, have a drink, keep drinking and say, woe is me, or you can sit there and say, okay, this is another chapter. What am I going to learn? And that's how you become successful in anything in life. Is you take any challenge. You know what? God, I wish COVID didn't happen. But on the one aspect, it really made me a better real estate entrepreneur, because what I was not going to do is lose money for my investors. What I was not going to do is stop buying things. It just changes your entire life. You change your focus. And I'm sure with even the multifamily people out there, all of a sudden it's like, hey, the government says you're not allowed to collect any rent anymore. Which we won't get into how I feel about that, but you can either say, "Oh my God," and panic, or you can say, "Okay, time to tighten the belt and see how you can figure it out." But things that I did, man, it from day one, it's like, okay, how am I going to do this? No one's coming to these hotels, and it was great that I did not have to close any of the hotels during COVID. What I did is I scoured the internet, the government websites, the state websites to say, okay, what kind of grants? And that's another thing about hotels other than multifamily is because I'm a small business, I fall under the SBA regulations and the government regulations of having a small business. So I was able to get the PPP loans. I kept all of my people employed, and I was able to get the EIDL disaster loans, just like people were to get disaster loans if when the hurricanes strike. I was actually getting a disaster loans. Multifamily people can't do that because it's not a business under the government term of what a business is.
Yeah. You have employees, you have staff, and just whatever their guidelines are. Yeah, for sure. I was thinking too, like we're Duc and I are in Hawaii. And so, obviously we saw the local tourist economy just get super impacted. Yeah. And even now, it's just been kind of like this, literally this wave of, all right, like you're these waves keep coming in terms of, all right, like restriction and government impact and all that kind of stuff. I would imagine that now you mentioned you didn't have to shut down any of your operations throughout. How important was we all know in real estate, location is absolutely key. Now, in terms of operations for landlord friendly states and all that kind of stuff, like that obviously factors into multifamily, any kind of landlord tenant laws and all that kind of stuff. That's not something you have to contend with. I don't know what locations you've got property in for your hotels, but how have you seen that impacted? Like, have you seen certain locations do better than others? Like, are you like, nope, not going to those markets? You've
hit the head on the nail. Not only do you have to look at, because I do have single family homes also. But I don't do like the landlord thing. I do lease to own, rent to own type things. Because I don't call me at 2 o'clock in the morning when you flush something down you shouldn't have, in the toilet. When I do the lease to owns, that's another episode. I'm not a landlord. I'm basically a bank. I can't call Wells Fargo when my water heater goes out, right? Or Chase. But, getting back to your question, yes, it is so important, not only the landlord tenant laws, but also is the state business friendly? And, in answering that question, it's hard not to get political because you have one side of the spectrum that is more pro-business, more pro-landlord, and you have the other side of the aisle that is pro-tenant or anti, they want your business in their state because they want to tax you, and so I won't say which of the aisles, we'll stay on that. But what I will do is, most of my business is in Arizona. Our governors actually came out and said, you know what, no more of this free stay at home, you don't have to work government money. He actually said, you're no longer going to get government free money, you're going to go back to work. And he said, if you stay at work for a little bit of time, the state will actually pay you to go back to work, not to pay you to stay home and not work. So that's kind of a different thing. We want you to go to work. And, it seems like a lot of people, nope, we'd rather pay you to not work. And then when I look at hotels, because it's a business, you look at the different states that immediately just locked everything down. Like, oh my God. I mean, not only are you not allowed to go to a restaurant, you can't even be open. You can't do anything outside. You can't do anything. Well, I look at that. It's like, well, if this happens, if we get COVID 2.0 or 3.0, do I want to build a hotel that I know will shut me down? Okay. So those are things you learn, here in Arizona, Georgia, Florida, the Midwest, except Illinois. They said, you know what, hotels and restaurants are a business that is crucial to the economy. So luckily in our states, we didn't have to worry about it. We didn't have to shut down unless we wanted to. And why would I not want to continue doing businesses in states that are friendly to what I'm doing? So it's here in the mainland, it's really big. I don't know how it is it was in Hawaii, but it's so big. And that's why, you look at California, so many businesses are moving to Arizona, Texas. They're moving out of California because they just can't handle the taxes. They can't handle the regulations. they don't want to shut down. You look at Elon Musk, he's basically gave California the finger and moved to Texas, and why did he do that? And it's the same mindset of all of us, even small business. You don't have to be a billionaire to learn that. We look at what his policies was and say, yeah, I can't waste money. I can't just shut down because someone forces me. So I don't go there.
Follow the smart money. Some advice that I've gotten. Hawaii typically trails California by several years. We usually the state usually kind of takes their lead. I'm a Texas boy, so I've seen it the other without getting political. So
yeah.
Now I know you've talked.
Well, I just it's a fine line, right? It's a fine line. You have to pick and choose and hope you choose right most of the time.
All right. Yeah. Now I know you've talked a little bit about raising funds, and you obviously you've got your open fund that you're working towards. Now, how would like if somebody decides, okay, hey, you know what, Mike, I want to park my money with you, right? Or you've got obviously not friends and family, but if it's just if you're able to do an open fund, you're dealing with higher level investors. How would investing with you be different than say going with like a REIT or even some other type of like a crowdfunded type of platform? How would that differ? How does that work? Pros, cons, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Another good question. So if you're doing a very large private equity group or a REIT, you're basically just buying it's like the stock market. You're just buying a share. Nobody knows your name. Nobody cares what your name is. You have 50 grand in there, or if you do crowdfunding, you can only do, you can do $50, $100. That to me, oh my God, I can't handle. I don't know what I'd do if I had 20,000 people give me $100. That just to me is, there's too much money out there for me to have to do that. When I look at crowdfunding, I say, okay, you just watched 5 episodes of HGTV. You now have all this experience and you want to buy a 50 unit. No one with smart money is going to do it with you. So you do these smaller crowdfundings, you're going to get 20,000 people, give you $10. Now you can buy your multifamily. Don't need to do that, so I'm not going to. The difference with me is I know you're dealing with a guy, the owner, with me, that is a lot of times I have to like personally guarantee that loan because I'm small enough. So you buy, $6, $7, $8 million hotel with me, and I'm personally guaranteeing that loan. You're not just a number for me. I am actually invested. I actually have money myself, where the REITs, the owners, the people that are handling those things, they're just hired guns, right? They're very smart. And I would say do both. Put some of your money in a REIT, put some of your money into the large guys. But some of the smaller guys like me, every single one of my investors has my cell phone number. I personally give them reports. They can call me up anytime. I have investors emailing me, how's this going? What's that going? What are you seeing in this? Is this true? So you're getting a much, much, much more personalized and committed view, in my type of arena. I don't want to get to the point where I'm just so big that I have no idea what's going on and I just collect a check. I love being in the trenches, and I think that my investors are happy or knowing that I'm actually in the trenches. I'm going to the hotels. I am constantly aware of what's going on. I'm emailing and talking to my GMs and my team on a daily basis. So if you're very, very conservative and you want to get into real estate, go into a REIT, you'll have no idea what you're buying into. It could be a share of 5 or 6 or 10 different businesses. And, the difference with the REIT, you get some here in Arizona, they'll keep something empty, a REIT, because they actually want to offset some gains. So you can be buying into things and they don't care. They're the ones that are buying the huge things that are getting 2% because that's all they care about. They make 1%, 2%, you're fine. And you're just going to get this little dividend. Where if you invest the same amount of money with me, you can make twice your money. You can make 2.3 times your money because you're buying into like one type of investment. And it's nice to say, hey, I own 20% of a Radisson Country Inn and Suites or something like that, instead of, I don't know, XYZ REIT and who knows. So it depends on
$50.
Yeah, $50. I own a half a share of something. And it depends on how conservative or aggressive you want to be. Do you want to? I'm a lot more riskier, right, than a big multi-billion-dollar, $100 billion REIT. So that's why I say I do it all. Keep stuff in the stock market, buy some REITs, and then take the chance on making a lot of money with someone like me.
Now I am curious. So like we run some short-term rentals. Like obviously this is, some shared aspects with, hotels, hospitality, that kind of deal. Smaller, these are all, done with single family, but we've kind of crossed or entertained the idea, okay, how do you blend it, right? And not even fully mentally into like, okay, yeah, we run a hotel. How do you, I'm curious, like, how do you evaluate like hotel, being that you've got experience on both, like I said, the multifamily side and the hotel side? How do those like evaluations differ? Because they obviously have different components to them, but similar in many aspects as well.
Yeah, they are similar. You're looking at the money. You're looking at the strength of the brand. When you get into hotels, what we do, what's different is because we don't really look at the cap rates. There's a multiplier that we use in hotels. So we look at the gross, and let's say it grosses, $2 million a year. And then each market, each type of hotel, there's a multiplier. Well, that hotel is worth 4 times the gross, or 4.2 times the gross. It's different in different cities, in different locations. But so we kind of use a multiplier. But what I do is you look at what type of brand is it, and is it a Radisson, is it a Motel 6? And then you're saying, okay, within that market, how strong is it? That the Marriotts and the Hiltons and the Hyatts, these are big names, Holiday Inns, they're going to be stronger, but because they're so much stronger, they're going to be worth a lot more money. You're going to pay more money for a 100-room Marriott than you're going to do with the same thing, with the Best Western or something like that. So you just have to evaluate that type of cost. And then I look at the hotel and say, okay, how much work, just like you would in multifamily, how much work does it need? And then I may be able to, my vendors that I have, I can go in and maybe revamp this hotel at a fraction of the cost. Because every 5 or so years, depending on the brand, 5 to 7, they go through an entire refresh. Okay, we call it a PIP in the hotel industry. So you'll all
just to clarify okay, I got you.
Right. A PIP, PIP, which is kind of it's an enhancement. So what you do is all of a sudden the Radisson or the Marriott or the Quality Inn, they'll say, okay, hey, guess what? We're changing something and we're doing a refresh. And you have 2 years to do it, and it's going to cost you $800,000. That's something you don't have to deal with in multifamily. But if you have a strong brand, they want to know that wherever you go in the entire United States, if you stay at a Marriott, you get the exact same type of experience, right? It's going to look the same. They don't want something come in and it's like, oh my God, everything's ripped up and stained. And so, they have pride in their brands, right? So what I do is I look at how much money that's going to cost, or is there any? There's always going to be something. And then my evaluation, maybe a little bit more than multifamilies, I have to look at that location. And things that I talked about earlier, where what I've changed is I want it to be outside of the major metro. So we look at what's called drivers in hotels. What is driving people to come to stay at this hotel? Multifamily, you don't have to really do that. People need a place to live, right? So really, the location isn't that important. With hotels, what I learned with COVID and what I learned with downturns is you can't have just one driver. Hey, it's near a ski slope. What if people aren't skiing? Then you're dead. So I look at the drivers that wire people coming to that hotel, and I need at least 2 or 3 drivers. In case one goes down, I've got the other 2. 2 go down, at least I have still 1 driver. So I don't want something just only by a university. Okay, well, because we learn kids will study at home in case something happens. But if it's near a university just off the highway and it's within a half a mile of a hospital, or there's an amusement park, what are some other things to bring people in? So that's another thing that we do with evaluating. And then How many vendors are there? Here's the thing. It's different with hotels. I may have 40 different vendors that I'm paying every month, and from cleaning supplies and it just the internet and it just everything. There's about 40 of them that I pay every month. The breakfast, the stupid free breakfast that I have to pay. I'm just kidding. Us hotels, that's another thing that we kind of, it's like, oh, come on, it's like we don't get anything, out of the free breakfast. It's an expense. We don't get to charge anything, right? So there's just all these different things that we have to evaluate. It's a lot harder to evaluate a hotel because there's just so many things that you have to look at. Instead of with multifamily, it's, okay, cap rate, what's in my IRR, what's my, it's a lot more simple when you're dealing with, can I bump up the rents? It's a lot more easy, but hotels, it's a process. I have probably 10 or 12 page type of a checklist that it takes sometimes 7-8 months to close a hotel because you're just going through every line item and asking things and just evaluating things. It's a business. You don't just go out and buy a business, right? Without looking at all these little different intricacies.
I can imagine. I mean, we recently got another short-term rental up and running. It's like just even trying to factor in like daily pricing strategy because it's not static. I mean, you touched on that earlier, but it's like, well, how do you freaking run a pro forma off of that? Because there's so much, you're doing this kind of number, and it's like, yeah, but the weekday rates have to be significantly less. And how do we factor in occupancy? Hopefully, like with you guys, you've got historical trends you can kind of hopefully bank on, but with COVID, I know that kind of threw things out of whack too. So
we can also look at our competitors. It's kind of like what you guys look at. Well, what's other Airbnbs or short-term rentals, these things, what are they doing? And it's very good. I can look at 6 or 7 different hotels that are the same type of level that mine are. What have they been doing the last 3 years? Is all of a sudden this hotel that I'm buying, is he trying to fudge some numbers? Because you look at the comp set, you look at the historical numbers. It's hard to fudge a hotel, and multifamily is very easy to fudge. I can bring in 100 homeless people and put them in there, and all of a sudden I have 100% occupied, multifamily asset. And if you don't look at how long have those people been in there, I got burned a long time ago because I didn't know any better, right? I was like, man, this is 100% occupied. I didn't know that they all moved in 2 months ago. So those are things you learn from your mistakes and don't do it again, right?
Yeah, we've had some experience with that too, right? Where the seller, all right, the seller just wants to move on from it, so they're just going to put any warm body into that,
right.
Into that unit, and
make it look gooder.
Yeah, more gooder. My last question to you, Mike. You've obviously had quite a bit of experience in a number of different arenas here, specifically in real estate. Are hotels the final stop for you?
No, it's not, because you're always diversifying, right? My next step is another thing, because I'm not stressed enough right now. Is I'm really looking into what's another industry that exceeded expectations during COVID. And that's RV ownership. People didn't fly, and people, if they couldn't even afford it, or they didn't have a place to park it, everybody bought RVs. And we're going to see that continued expansion of that for the next several years, is what the performers are saying. So I'm getting ready. It's probably closer than the next hotels. I'm getting ready to build a luxury RV storage parking, along with some self-storage.
Gosh, and you're in a great market to do it if you're going to do it.
Great
area,
market.
Right?
Great market. And here's the thing: is you have a $500,000, $1 million rig. You don't want to just park it in a chain link fence. You see all these things popping up, these chain link fences, and you're just kind of parking out in this 1 acre field. If you do a luxury, spend some money. Some of them are even going to be what we call RV hotels. It's going to be an actual garage, 4-sided garage with a keypad that you can park the rig inside, or everything. 100% of them are going to be covered, and you're going to do a lot of luxury things: washing stations, dump stations, all these concierge type things that you can have. Everything's going to be a lot of security, a lot of gates. But what's great, what I love is it's very labor intensive. It's not labor intensive. You don't need a lot of, and God, employees. I just want them to come back to work. That's another thing. But there's not a lot of infrastructure to build. You have 10 acres of pavement, and basically, just covered parking, self-storage. So that's going to be the next thing that I'm going to do, and that's the next thing that I will be opening up to investors.
You heard it here first, folks. I like it. It's like a hotel for the the RVs and the
yeah, your luxury boat. It's not going to be cheap. It's not. You're not going to. It's for the big rigs and the big boats, but it's going to be nice.
Very cool.
That's awesome. I love how you just take what the market is giving you and just responding to those opportunities.
Yeah, and for all your listeners, you have to do that. Please do that. Number one, build a team. Here's Mike's 2 cents. Don't do any of this without a team. Don't do any of this without a mentor. Don't get bogged down. Go outside of your fears. I see so many people. Well, if I just do one more seminar, then I'll be ready to buy my first, house. It's like, my God, I'm on the panels of, I'm an expert panelist on all these seminars, and I see the same people in there, and I talk to them. Well, I saw you here, 3 or 4 years ago? Yeah. What have you done? Well, spend another 50 grand in seminars. I'm like, it's a down payment on a house, do it. But always expand, diversify when you have the opportunity. And, the only reason why I've been able to expand and diversify is I finally got to the point with my VAs where I'm working for my business to expand it instead of constantly working in my business. If you have to get to that point where if you're paying the bills all the time, if you're constantly doing your multifamily and you're spending 40 hours a week wondering and worrying about your multifamily property, well, how are you going to buy another one? How are you going to buy 3 of them? How are you going to buy 5 of them? Get to the point where I am, where I've managed and owned 1,400 of them. You have to have that team. You have to be able to delegate so that I can concentrate on the next hotel and the next RV. If I didn't have these VAs, I'd just be so worried about and bogged down on things that you have to have a team.
Couldn't agree more. All right, let's transition to our fire round. What's the best book that you recommend other than Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Money Secrets of the Rich is a dear friend of mine, John Burley. He is kind of the king of the lease to own type of that type of concept, and he actually helped write some of Donald Trump's real estate books. The guy he's been on Senate hearings, and what he did. Here's a tidbit: Rich Dad Poor Dad, Kiyosaki, his real estate holdings, how he made his money in the real estate holdings. He used John Burley's concept, and John Burley was the actual person that oversaw Kiyosaki's homes. So he wrote a book, and he goes, look, here's how the people that are successful handle their money. This is how they do things. So it's not a real estate book. It's why do rich people still have money and they're able to build it up? And it just kind of changed my life as far as, look, you don't buy something until you have the cash to buy it. You can still put it on a credit card. I put everything on a credit card to get points, but then you pay it off at the end of the month. You don't hold balances. It's just these types of, it's all encompassing, but I love that book. It changed my life and how you think.
What's your superpower?
Boy, I wish it was my golf game, but that's not it. It kind of goes back to the airline days. I am very analytical. There's not a lot that gets by and I even look at some things and catch things that my managers, my GMs, no one catches, just because I'm able to kind of concentrate down into the nitty gritty and just figure things out. So that is a unsuperpower and a superpower, because it drives other people nuts that I'm so analytical. But my success is because I look at every line item and digest, and I'm a checklist junkie, and that's part of that analytics. And that's the thing. I don't ever go into a multifamily, single family, or hotel without my checklist. And it's the same thing, you don't want your airline pilot to go through his checklist by memory, right? I think I covered it all, you know.
Oh, I forgot the fuel gauge.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Is that why did we? Oh yeah, I forgot to turn the fuel gauge on. That's why even if you have 20, 25 years of experience being an airline pilot, you know what? They go through the same checklist for the millionth time, and they always pull out that checklist. That's what everyone needs to do in evaluating properties. Don't go by memory. Go by the checklist and get a good checklist, right?
Got it. What is the biggest lesson that you've learned over your career?
It is getting a team, and the biggest lesson was hiring those VAs. Hiring a team. What I did was when you're first starting out, there's that crucial time period when you get a little bit greedy. You don't want to spend money, but you can't grow unless you spend money. Okay. At some point, you can't. If you want to grow, you can't do it all yourself. You have to delegate. You're going to have to jump in and hire someone to do things for you so that you can grow. That is really what I learned. Once I took that jump and hired people, I'm like, oh my God, wow, I have what am I going to do with all this time that I have? Well, what do? You buy more stuff. And, that's why I love the VAs, because, I'm hiring college educated people that want to work, that love coming to work, and I don't pay any taxes on them. I don't have any withholdings. And these college educated people, I'm paying $7 an hour, and that is an upper middle class salary in Mexico. So it's a win-win. My VAs they're saving to buy their first house in Mexico, and it makes me feel good that they're able to save. And I'm like going, wow, I'm really saving because I don't have all the stuff, and I'm paying $7 an hour. So it's just something. Once I realized that I can hire that team at that cost, that's when I'm like, woo, here we go. I can afford a lot of those, people, and they're so dedicated. They want on their resumes. I work for an American company, and I'm doing podcast notes. I'm doing the show notes. I'm scheduling, they're calling the tenants, handling all the calls. They're doing everything. $7 an hour.
Yeah, it's great value. We use VAs in our business as well.
Yeah, it saves you money, saves you time.
So for the busy working professional working towards financial freedom, what advice do you have?
Yeah, diversify. You really need to diversify. You're going to realize if you make good money, your IRA, your 401k is not going to do it. You're going to have to diversify. You really need 6 to 7 types of diversification within your portfolio. And I know that everyone says, but it's true. Keep things in your stock market. Keep things, the IRA, 401 still max, put the max into all those things. But there's one thing, time and time again, since the history of civilizations, look, everyone, God is not making any more land, okay? Real estate is still the best investment you could ever make, unless you create your own company. I've seen so many more returns. I have a lot of money in the stock market, a lot of money in different things. Real estate is what has made me the most money. So that's what I would tell everyone. And do the passive investments. That's the best thing, is don't try to do it on your own, especially if you work 9 to 5 and you're working. What are you going to do? All of my investors make good money. They know that real estate is it. They're smart enough to know it, but they don't have the time. They don't have the knowledge. So you invest with someone and do your due diligence. Don't make sure they're not just a TV junkie, someone that's starting out. Do your research, but then invest passively. That's where you're going to make some money.
Excellent advice. So thank you so much for joining us. And how can our audience get in touch with you?
Sure. LinkedIn, under Michael Stohler. And our website is gatewaype.com. And you'll learn what we do and how we do it. And then there's also a click if you're interested in just learning a little bit about the VA business. There's the tab up at the top, and you just fill in information, and I will actually get back to you personally.
Well, it's been great having you on the show, and we appreciate all the knowledge and wisdom.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
What an awesome episode, Duc, with Mike Stohler. Boy, he's sharing a bunch of awesome wisdom, and we haven't really had anybody on who's had a significant hotel experience. And he's coming from a background multifamily, smaller, even residential. So Mike shared with us a ton of gems, insights, especially coming from that side of the business, but just from business tactics and strategy alone. Super, super cool interview. Another a cool tip I'd never heard of, and he made mention of for those of you guys looking to get started. He started off with finding some opportunities with the local college, local university, that they get property and whatnot granted to them at times, so they may not be in the business of wanting to manage that. So hit up your local, universities, your local college campuses to see if they've got property they need to offload, or they're just not equipped to handle maybe for student housing, or maybe not even student housing. I thought that was a really cool tip. I had never heard that before. I love this quote that he gave: say, build a life that you don't need a vacation from. I love that. And I think that's what a lot of us would strive for, not wanting to have to, okay, well, I've got to take my 2 vacations this year or travel or whatever, but actually working to build that life right from the get, or not from the get-go, but that's your daily life. It's something you don't necessarily need to take a vacation from. I think that's something that we can probably all strive to try and work towards. I really like that. And again, some other business insight he gave, hotel that he sees as he runs, they're the SBA and the government sees it more of a business. So he's able to take advantage of SBA loans and grants and whatnot. He gave us some insight in terms of investing, how REITs and crowdfund insights, which is they vary kind of based off of what he's offering. And similar to us, running a syndication or something, you can be in direct contact with operators, the people who are actually making decisions versus something, like a REIT or a crowdfunding site. I mean, you're so far out of touch with any of the leadership. You're not going to have any hand or any insight and into what's going on with the day to day. So, just overall, super cool interview with Mike. I mean, go back and take a listen to it. I'm sure you'll find more gems. Or I want to go back and listen to it again. I would love to have him back on at some point to share some more insight. And you can tell he's just got a wealth of knowledge from being, as aggressive as he's been in his investing career. But go back, listen to the episode. I'm sure you'll get some more stuff out of it. So really good.
And if you're interested in investing with us, go to tricityequity.com to learn more. To connect with like-minded investors, join our Facebook group, Honolulu Multifamily and More. If you found value in this podcast, please subscribe and give us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you know anyone who might resonate with today's podcast, please share the episode with them.
All right. And we're also going to just episode plug for the conference. So again, if you haven't been keyed in, we are going to be having a conference next year, the Hawaii Millionaire Mindset Conference. You still got a full year left to plan. So I know, there's still uncertainty, things going on and travel and all that kind of stuff. But, ideally everything's died down by that way and you're ready for a great vacation. Plan to be here next year, July 21st to the 24th, 2022. Obviously, we're past July now, but it's going to be out here, the Four Seasons here on Oahu. So if you're trying to plan a business trip or a trip for the family, the Disney resort is right next door, Alani. So you can have the family over there. You can come over for business and all be a write-off. So how about that? So make sure you're checking out, all the different things that we've got going on. We're adding speakers all the time. We're adding different networking sessions. So if you want to come out and network with like-minded individuals, people who want to take you to the next level, definitely plan to be there. You can check that out at millionairemindsetblueprint.com. We'll definitely leave that link in the show notes for you guys. But of course, if you have any questions, if you need any help with any of that, check out the site, reach out. We're glad to help. We'd love to see you there. We're planning on it.